Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 7. It's hard to believe it, but we're getting really close to the end of the term. This week, there's no discussion, but you do have your third critical task due on Sunday, July 31st at midnight, your local time, as well as your Module 7 exam, also due midnight on Sunday, July 31st. I'll be posting some advice on critical task number 3 within the next couple of days. Last week, we spent some time looking at inductive arguments, which are incredibly important because we use inductive reasoning often in our daily lives. We looked at the three most common types of inductive arguments: generalizations, analogies, and causal arguments, and we had a really great discussion in the forums about times when we have made generalizations. This week, we're going to move on to talk about deductive arguments. Remember that, for inductive arguments, all we can arrive at is that it is likely or probable that the conclusion is true if it follows from the premises. But with a deductive argument, we get more than that. We get proof if certain conditions are met. Just like we had indicator words with inductive arguments, we have them with deductive arguments as well, although they are much stronger now. Words and phrases such as certainly, definitely, absolutely, conclusively, must be, and it necessarily follows that. These are words that can indicate that we are looking at a deductive argument rather than an inductive argument. Important things that we will consider when we examine deductive arguments are validity and soundness. So let's talk validity first. Valid deductive arguments are arguments in which it is impossible for the conclusion to be false given that the premises are true. Invalid deductive arguments are arguments in which it is possible for the conclusion to be false given that the premises are true. We can test the validity of an ordinary language argument by taking the following two steps. First, we assume that all of the premises are true, and then, in light of that assumption, we try to determine if it is possible for the conclusion to be false. Let's look at an example. Premise 1 says that all television networks are media companies. Premise 2 says that NBC is a television network. The conclusion is, therefore, NBC is a media company. The question we have to ask ourselves is, if we assume the premises are true, is it possible for the conclusion to be false? There's an important thing I want you to remember about validity. Validity is not determined by the actual truth of the statements in an argument. Rather, it is determined by the relationship between premises and conclusions. The question is not whether the premises and conclusions are true or false, but rather whether the premises support the conclusion. In a valid argument, the premises do support the conclusion. In an invalid argument, the premises do not support the conclusion. When we look at soundness, what we're looking at is truth. A sound argument is a valid argument that contains all true premises. Necessarily, all sound arguments are valid, but not all valid arguments are sound. Here's a chart that I think is really helpful. It's from Patrick Hurley's A Concise Introduction to Logic, 11th edition. In Chapter 8, we're going to look closely at three types of deductive arguments: arguments by elimination, arguments based on mathematics, and arguments from definition. We'll also be looking at hypothetical and categorical syllogisms, and we'll learn how to use Venn diagrams to evaluate categorical syllogisms. Finally, in this chapter, we'll also be learning how to translate arguments from ordinary language into standard form. Chapter 8 is full of really useful information. Although we may see inductive arguments more commonly in our everyday lives, learning how to evaluate deductive arguments will make us better critical thinkers.